Welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or are in the process of overcoming a life topic that to some is seeming a very difficult task to overcome. I'm Ron Cooper, president, founder of the Cooper Culture, along with my wife and business partner, Marty. We profile those who have overcome and have a story others need to hear. Our life experience is one that we have learned that everyone has a story someone needs to hear. We hope that this series is an inspiration to you and those within your circle of influence to help people to make good decisions. Our purpose is not to dwell on the past, but rather to learn from the past such that we can help others make good decisions. We hope this series will warrant a 5-star rating, and you'll want to subscribe to this series where we help others make good decisions. Today we profile Chris Woods, who has overcome drug and alcohol disease, and you'll hear him say he's in a long-term recovery. But it's interesting to listen to Chris in some of the relationships and some of his perception of who he is that led him into the 8 period of his life where he thought opioids would help him overcome some of the, I would say, insecurities that he felt. Marty?
Yes, I want you all to listen to Chris explain what the opioid did for him or to him.
We also will learn the value of relationships. That's a very common story of how others helped people overcome whatever life challenges they're having. And some of those, as you listen to Chris, are not easy challenges. They take a period of time. And so it's incumbent on us, if we consider ourselves outsiders, to be very willing to stay with those who are going through a period of recovery, to let them know that this is an unconditional love and relationship we have, albeit it may take some time, and frequently does take some time, to help this person through whatever it is they're going through, such that we can help them be victorious on the other side of recovery. Listen to Chris's story. I think you'll find it intriguing.
Hello, Chris. Great to have you with us. Chris, I think our listeners are going to be just captivated by your story, but thank you for being willing to share with us.
Hey, Ron, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Chris, it's my understanding, and let me know if I have a different understanding, that you are at the Recovery Centers of America counseling others to overcome diseases of abuse of which you have overcome. Is that a fair, brief summary of your background?
Yes, Ron. So what I do is I work for Recovery Centers of America. I started at our Devon location right on the main line in Pennsylvania, about 20 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I just celebrated over 6 years, alcohol and drugs free. I help people to find treatment, seek the appropriate level of care that are suffering from substance use disorder or alcohol dependency.
Great. Well, Chris, congratulations on 6 years of freedom. I will tell our listeners that neither Marty nor I have ever experienced drug or alcohol to the extent that perhaps you have, Chris. And that's only to say that I'm learning about this along with many of our listeners. But Chris, could you just briefly give us some of your backstory? And for our listeners, our focus is not the past, but rather just have enough of appreciation of your past so that we can help people make good decisions. So very interested in in your story, Chris?
Sure. So born and raised in Philadelphia, right in the Germantown, Roxborough area of Philadelphia, to a loving family. My mom and my grandparents raised me. Went to Catholic school. Through Catholic school, played a lot of sports, baseball and soccer to be specific, and I absolutely just kind of dove into those sports. If I'm to be quite honest, really, I went to school just so I could play sports. Growing up, I went to a Catholic high school right in the city of Philadelphia. Loved it there. Very early on, I was very kind of concerned with how people looked at me or what I thought about myself. So, what I thought was that I was going to be this professional sports player or something of that nature. But what turned out happening was I turned into, I judged a lot of kids for the local, drinking parties in the woods and people, smoking weed and things of that nature. So I wasn't going to go that route just yet. But I had been introduced to opiates at a very, younger age, around 14, 15. And what ended up happening is I started to live a double life, and I didn't know it was happening at the time, but, hindsight's 2020. We live life forward, but hindsight's 2020. I turned into someone that was on these varsity sports teams, but in the afternoon or after school, I was living this completely different life, a life that, like, my mom wasn't really too aware of. And as my story progresses, I introduced my family to a life that they never knew existed, much like how you speak of how you're still learning and you haven't, kind of experienced this yourself. So throughout high school, I struggled with, opiates. I was, physically addicted to them, at 15, 16, 17. And as it progressed, I continued to play soccer. I continued to play baseball. And everything on paper looked fine. But again, looking back, I was just dying on the inside. So as I, came to my senior year, I was convinced that, I was living in this self-delusion that, it was everybody around me. It wasn't my fault. It was the neighborhood I grew up in, which, full disclosure, there's nothing wrong with the neighborhood that I grew up in. That's just the delusion that I'll kind of paint a picture for myself. My senior year, I said, you know what, I'm going to get out of the area. I'm going to go to a small D2 school. And what ended up happening is I took myself with me. I tried to continue that lifestyle that if I could just, get through college, that everything would be okay. And this is just a phase in my life that I'm just going to grow out of. And I was very quickly aware that it was not a phase that I was going to grow out of. So what ended up happening is I got honest with my mom, and, like any loving person, mother, family member, friend, she did what any person would do. She tried to help. She got me into a treatment center the following day. I got to that treatment center, and I was 19 years old. I didn't get sober until I was 23. Now, Ron, I wish I could say that I went to treatment once a year, but that wasn't the case either. I would go in and out of treatment for the next 4 years, in and out, every 3 to 6 months. Each time kind of biting off a little bit more truth of myself, maybe being a little bit more willing to take some suggestions that the treatment center had suggested, maybe not hanging around people, places, and things, but realistically, I was not ready, and I didn't know it at the time, but I do now. I was just not ready. And if it was as simple as, me not put that substance into my body, then I would be okay. But turns out it's a lot deeper than that. So with that being said, I finally took a suggestion and said, well, just a quick story. So what happened was I went to my mom and I said, Mom, listen, I can't keep doing this to you. I can't keep living at your house, living rent-free. It's not because you don't love me or anything like that, because that was never the case. Unconditional love has always been there for me. But I couldn't keep continuing to do this to my family. So I said, Mom, I'm going back to treatment. I'm not coming home this time. I'm going to go to a recovery house in Bucks County or wherever they send me. and I'm going to take every suggestion that they tell me to do. And this time going to treatment, I wasn't financially broken. I still had a job. My family was still there. I had been in worse places in my life as far as on paper, but this time I was so spiritually broken that I just couldn't continue to go on the way that I was. So I got the treatment, and that's kind of, when I got the treatment on November 28th of 2014, that's where my life kind of started. I got the treatment. It was, I went through the detox process. It wasn't a very pretty sight. I went back to a recovery house. I completely rebuilt my life. But not really any of it is of my own doing. I entered into a 12-step fellowship. I got around guys that are trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do as far as staying sober and be a productive member of society. And it's just, it's great. I'd love to sit here, Ron, and tell you that everything's been, rainbows and sunshine, but, there's been some hard times. There's been some, we're going through a pandemic right now. But, I don't drink and drug. And, that's kind of like the beauty of everything. I was able to rebuild my life. I was able to, have children in sobriety. My twin daughters are 4 now. And God willing, they'll never have to see me take a drink or a drug. I live a very full life today. And that's just my personal life, my professional life. I got into working in drug and alcohol treatment about 5 years ago. I started at a very entry-level position. I started as a recovery support specialist, working with our clients, our patients 24/7. I was the guy on the floor that was getting, somebody like me out of bed. So I was the guy that was, when somebody's struggling, I'm there to talk to them and tell them, hey, this is normal. It's okay to be upset or be a little afraid or feared up of the future. But this is life, right? And there's nothing to drink or drug over. And as I continued to kind of, again, people in the 12-step fellowship showed me how to be a productive, employee and kind of go above and beyond. I continued to grow with Recovery Centers of America. As the company grew, I grew, and now I'm in my current role where I'm a treatment advocate. I work specifically in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and I just try to help people find the appropriate level of care. And people who are suffering from substance use disorder or alcohol dependency, I'll meet with families, I'll talk with people. Maybe they can relate with me, maybe they can't, but really I'm just there to listen and, hear what they're going through and see how we can help. Because substance use disorder and alcohol dependency is not slowing down, especially in this pandemic right now. So, Ron, I live a very full life, and, it's been exciting, and, I know that I'm just scratching the surface with everything. We're 6 years in here now, and I can't imagine, God willing, what 10 years is going to look like. We just buckle up and we go for the ride.
Chris, you have a very intriguing story. Marty and I each love to hear about a transformed life, and it appears that's exactly what you have just described. About 4 things have come to mind, Chris. I want to see if you'd tell us a little bit more. You mentioned that your mom and grandmother raised you. Is there an implicit statement that your dad was not in the picture? And please, I'm not asking in any accusatory way. It's just to get a better picture.
So, of course, yeah. So my dad was not really in the picture. My dad also suffered from alcoholism. So he lived in the same neighborhood as us. He was, very touch and go. He was very, he was there sometimes for birthday parties, sometimes he wasn't. Through the 12-step fellowship and the amends process, I had been able to become a son, because that's something that I also had to look at when I did get sober is, what was my relationship like as a son? Did I ever make a true attempt? So when I got sober, I was able to kind of rebuild a relationship with him up until the point that he passed away from cancer about a year ago, maybe 9 months ago. And it was kind of a beautiful thing. He was able to be a grandfather to my kids. But yes, growing up, he was not there. He did suffer from alcoholism. And I think that did play a part of, my upbringing and this delusion that I grew up in as far as maybe not being good enough or not being wanted. again, not knowing that at the time, but again, hindsight's 20/20.
Chris, I think what you just said is very telling. It happens sometimes when the relationship in the family is not what we'd hoped it to be, and maybe it's not what we'd hoped it to be because of various statements and so forth. I personally can identify with some of what you just said. And so what I'm interpreting, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that there was an aspect of your relationship with your dad to where you felt inadequate. And that you may use different terms, but am I generally interpreting your statement correctly?
Oh, for sure. I could go on for however long we had to about, kind of describing how I felt, now kind of seeing how I felt back then. But I think you're 100% spot on.
Okay, and that's very important.
But Chris, this is Marty. I want to give you honor and the fact that you turned it around and you said, what am I doing to be a son to my dad? So you turned it around to yourself. What part are you playing in helping that relationship, which I think is a very difficult thing to do, but I admire you for doing it.
No, and I'm going to build on that just a little bit, Chris. My interpretation of how you responded to the past is that you chose in the past, but you're choosing now to be a chain breaker. That as a dad who relates to children, you're going to be very positive about that. So, again, I don't want anything that I'm saying to be interpreted as being denigrating to anything of the past. I'm trying to emphasize the positive.
For sure. No, I appreciate it, guys.
Chris, talk to our listeners a little bit about opioids. My interpretation is there was something that was appealing to you about opioids. There was a time in your life you had never engaged in that, but you did. Can you reflect back just enough to let our listeners know what the appeal was to even try an opioid?
Mm-hmm. So I kind of alluded to it with my thought process of, being this high school athlete, and I wasn't going to be that kid that, for a real lack of better terms, got burned out on marijuana or just started drinking all the time. The opiate was, presented to me, and for some reason, without getting into like the actual scenario, I said okay. And I had, don't get me wrong, I had drank before, I had smoked marijuana before. But the way that it was described to me when I came into like the 12-step fellowship is that, this stuff, I react completely different than, say, you would, Ron, when it's put in my body. The normal reaction when somebody puts an opiate into their body is maybe a little nausea, the pain goes away, and they're really, kind of like, I don't really feel too good. The reaction that I got, and I remember it vividly, is, this is what I had been missing my entire life. For not even talking about like what it actually did for me physically, but what happened mentally. So as soon as I put it in my body, as soon as it took effect, it kind of changed my entire perspective of the world. This is what I had been missing. I feel like I can be a better athlete. I feel like I can have better conversations. I think I'm a better person. I think I'm more personable. And when something like that does something to you like that, I had no idea what I was fighting for the next however many years I went in and out of treatment. So the opiates for me was kind of, what made me, fall into this. Now, when I started to going into treatment in and out, there was other stuff involved as well. I would pretty much use anything I could get my hands on, but the opiates was what I went to every single time. So I don't know exactly what it is that, really roped me in, but I do know what it did for me mentally, and I don't want to say did to me, it's what it did for me. And I can't stress that enough. As soon as I put it in my body, it changed my entire perspective on the world. And that was, looking back on it now, that's a scary thing to say. But when it happened, I thought that I had found what I had been missing.
Chris, could be very, very important in understanding others who may have the propensity to follow the route that you took. But here's what I'm interpreting, and please tell me if I'm inaccurately assimilating what you're saying. But there was a part of your life to where you felt inadequate, insecure, whatever the term might be. But what I'm hearing you say is there was a mental part of it that maybe opioids, marijuana, whatever it is, maybe that could help me become the person I wanted to be, and I feel that I'm not. Am I hearing you correctly?
Sure. Yeah, to an extent, yes. It starts off like that, and I think this is why we have, this whole epidemic going on with the opiates and, even still alcohol for that matter. It started off like that, but at the base of it, for me, is realistically, I just like the way it makes me feel, physically. As soon as I put it in me, not only does my world change, but I like the effect produced by it. And furthermore, once I do it often enough to create a habit to be physically addicted to it, now it has me in its grips, and there's no turning back from it.
All right. I'm very curious, comparing then to now. Then you liked the way it made you feel. Now I'm guessing you have displaced the opioid impact and how it made you feel then with something of a greater lasting value. Am I reading too much into this?
No, that's kind of the whole base of the 12 steps, and for me, Alcoholics Anonymous. I've kind of switched that. Without getting too deep into it and losing the interest of anybody who's listening. If you're going to take away the drugs and alcohol from me, you better have something very powerful to put in its place. For me to kind of stay in recovery. I thought when I came into any type of 12-step fellowship, it was just about not drinking or drugging. Turns out my problem is me, so I need to find something, that's going to be pretty damn powerful for me to be able to live in recovery, and there's no way around it. That thing that's going to be able to keep me sober is some type of higher power. So whether I choose to call it God or whether I choose to call it, some type of formed religion, it doesn't matter. But that's what I had to kind of put in its place. So for the only way for me to get outside of myself is to kind of seek a power from, which I can live.
Chris, I'm very curious about overcoming you, maybe a low self-esteem, low confidence, whatever the term might be. If we are working with a person, we have a relationship with a person that has a similar background as you had, can you help us project, is there a way through maybe a relationship, something that we might be able to help this person make good decisions and not follow the route that you took?
I think there's a big part of it. I think I kind of have to preference, I had all the tools in the world to not go down this route, down this life. I had, a loving mother, loving grandparents that were there every step of the way, that would do anything for me. But it wasn't received the same way from, say, my mother than it was from the first time that I saw somebody that grew up in the same neighborhood as me, that was sitting on the other side of the room in the treatment center, that was able to stay sober. They do like alumni meetings at a treatment center, that was able to stay sober for a year or 2 years, and them coming up to me and saying like, hey man, listen, you don't have to live this way. I get what you're going through. And it was received much better than my mom. Love her. She did everything for me. The most selfless person I know. Than my mom coming up and saying, like, hey, Christopher, you need to stop. Can't you see that you're killing yourself? Yes, I could see that, but I couldn't stop. So the first thing for me was, like, I had to relate to somebody that I knew that was, was going through the same thing. Somebody, even if I didn't know them, just knowing that, they were speaking the same language of me, as me, and I could know that they had gone through what I was going through. And that, I wish I could say that kind of changed my perspective immediately or changed my thought process, but that wasn't the case. That just really opened my eyes to there is a different way to live. But it took me a few years after that to even become willing to really take a hard look at that.
Chris, I think you've hit on a very, very important point, relationships. What I'm hearing you say is that your grandmother had what I would categorize as an unconditional love for you, and she's willing to wait it out, so to speak, to say that I, grandmother, am not going to use the term, Chris, you've got to stop what you're doing, but rather I'm going to love you through this, and I, grandmother, am willing to wait whatever amount of time it takes, but I'm going to love you through this. Have I overcharacterized that?
No, for sure. My grandmother and my mother. With them also trying to, be there for me and say, hey, whenever you're ready to go back to treatment, we'll take you there. But they knew at some point they knew that they could not. If they could have gotten me sober, they could have gotten me clean, they would have done it a long time ago. I think you're spot on.
And now, do I hear you correctly, Chris? It took you 4 years to reach that point of, yep, I'm serious about recovering. I've got to change my life. Is that about the period of time?
Yes. I think I really wanted to change my life probably my senior year of high school, so when I was 18. But, I had to kind of learn the hard way that just because I wanted to change my life didn't mean that I was just going to change my life. There was actually some action that had to be taken. So I went to treatment my first time at 19, got sober at 23, so about 4 or 5 years. And I don't want to discourage anybody that may or may not be listening. A lot of my friends today went to treatment one time and have been able to stay sober and kind of keep this permanent recovery. I don't shy away from using the term permanent recovery because it's a real thing. But for me, it was about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, I think it's important for us to know that it's not a one-time you're going to turn your life around, a one-time event. It could take a period of years or at least a period of time, and there could be what I might refer to as false starts. That is, this week you felt that you wanted to turn your life around, but you didn't have the discipline, if I could use that term, to stay with the program, and nothing really changed. But over a period of time, your recovery happened, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. You could take any one of the multiple times I went to treatment. I would walk into treatment and I remember these thoughts. I'd have these conversations with my mom as she's bringing me to treatment. I do not want to live like this anymore. I do not want to put you through this pain. I can't continue to do this to my body. And I carry that into maybe my first or second week in treatment. By the third week, I'm sleeping okay. I have my weight back a little bit. I have an appetite. And all of a sudden, I don't need anything that this treatment center has to offer. I'm ready to leave before my time is up. Or maybe I stayed the entire time, and I'll go to your meetings and I'll share, but I won't pick up a sponsor. So what happened to that original thought for me? Why is it that not even 30 days ago, I don't want to live like this and I'm willing to do anything, but as soon as I feel a little bit better physically and I think that I just need to get a better hobby or get more money in my bank account, that I'm not really super willing to take all the suggestions that are laid out in front of my feet. And that's a whole other life lesson that I had to learn through going in and out of treatment. That just because I feel better doesn't mean that, I am better.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Chris. The other thing, you seem to have alluded to this, but talk to us a little bit more. Your mom and grandmother were very, very positive influences in your life, but I'm also reading into this, and tell me if I'm reading into it incorrectly. You changed your circle of friends, and the circle of friends perhaps more closely aligned with your mom's and grandmother's values, and collectively that is also what helped you change your life.
Yeah, 100%. So you're 100% right. My mom and my grandma were definitely the biggest positive influences I had. And that was a big thing. I remember speaking to numerous counselors about this in treatment. Like, what about my friends when I get out of treatment? I can't talk to them. I can't hang out with them. But if I'm being truly honest, when I was going in and out of treatment, I didn't have, per se, friends anymore at that time. This was just another delusion that I lived in that was in my head. I had associates. I had people that, I had using buddies. People that may or may not have known my family, or I had grown up with, but it wasn't, nobody was calling me, or I wasn't calling anybody and checking on how their day was going. So yes, when I finally made the decision that I was going to go to a sober living place in Bucks County, my entire friendships kind of just transformed. It kind of happened without me. I didn't fight the process anymore. And it's funny you bring that up because I have one friend left that I grew up with. He's also sober. So I don't think that that's a coincidence that we still speak. But yeah, my entire wedding in September was all people in recovery, my friend group that I got sober with, 5-6 years ago. So yeah, my entire friend group has kind of transformed into, and we're not fighting drinking or drugging. We're just people that are all on the same path that are, trying to be productive members of society and continue to grow. So yeah, my entire friend group did change when I got sober. And I think it's a direct result of me just taking the suggestions.
Yeah, I think that is integral, Chris, from my perception, that we are willing to accept Chris. And Chris, we're going to be with you, and we want to share our values with you without labeling you or being judgmental. But Chris, we want to develop a genuine friendship with you, and we're in this along with you. And that's what I'm hearing from what you're saying, Chris.
100%, yeah. My friends today, I have a small group of friends. I always thought that I had to be like the most popular kid growing up and things of that nature. But I have about 4 or 5 guys that I talk to every single day. And again, we're not like fighting a drink or a drug. That's kind of, one of the gifts of the 12-step fellowship, right? But yeah, we check in every single day. We hang out on the weekends. A lot of us have kids. Some of us got married. Some of us are engaged now. So it's kind of beautiful to see how like we've all kind of transformed our life and continue with this process.
Yeah, that's great. Chris, let me perhaps close out with this. What would be your response to the person, whether it's whether this person qualifies as, quote, an inner circle friend or whatever, but this person says, hey, Chris, let's go out and have a beer. We're not going to get drunk. We're just going to go out and have a little bit of fun. Or maybe let's say, hey, let's just smoke a weed. It's all entertainment, but hey, we're not going to get deep into any of this stuff. But let's just go out and have fun, celebrate a little bit, and that kind of thing. How do you respond to that, or is that not even a part of conversation now with the change of friends?
Yeah, so I would say, in short, that it's not even a part of a conversation. I think that, staying in recovery in this day and age is a bit easier for me. So I'm fully transparent. When I say I'm fully transparent, I mean that my social media, is kind of an open book, and everybody knows what I'm about just from looking at my Facebook. So I don't have to really encounter those questions often. Pretty much every single person that I come in contact with, whether it be from my past or someone new that I speak with, it's fully, not really my past, but what I am about. So yeah, I don't encounter that too often. Although if I was to, I would probably stay light with it. I'd make a joke about the situation. I drink, it may be, but yeah, it would not be hard for me to turn that down. And I say that like, oh, it's just as easy as saying no, because it's not. I had to do some work to get to that point. But by all means, I'm not fighting a drink or a drug. I can go anywhere and do anything. I often go to bars and get a burger. I'm not saying that I'm sitting at the bar and watching the game, but I'm not going to not go to my favorite burger place because they serve alcohol. That's not what I signed up for. So really, it's just being able to be free and go anywhere and do anything. But to answer your question with a very long-winded answer, I don't really encounter that too often.
No, it's very important to know, Chris. Here's what I'm interpreting what you just said. You know exactly who you are. I'm not sure the word tolerance is an applicable term, but you know what you can and can't do. You know your limits. You know you. And what used to be Chris is no longer the current Chris. Is that a fair characterization?
For sure. Without quoting the 12-Step Fellowship too much, it talks about being reborn. I've actually encountered some friends that I used to go to high school with and things of that nature, and they had this distorted perception of what I am now, and they thought that I was, some type of preacher, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the case at all. I don't think the same way that I used to, and if for some reason that does crop up, I have ways to get out of that thought process. Really, that kind of just looks like, turning my attention to somebody I can help. When I'm more concerned with somebody that I can help, I'm not really thinking of myself too often. So that's kind of the name of the game for me. Yeah, I do not. The old Chris is still there in a sense, but I don't look, sound, or act like the old Chris at all.
And I take that to mean you're very aware of the old Chris, and you know exactly what could lead to the old Chris, and you're totally resolved, Chris, that what used to be is never going to return. That's what I'm hearing you say.
As long as I continue to do the action that's outlined for me, God willing, that old Chris will never come back.
Yep. And I will tell you that Marty and I are faith-based. We never push the Bible on anybody, but we do firmly believe there is a higher being, that God has called us to a higher action, and as we put our trust and faith in the higher values, that is our belief. We don't push this on anybody, but we do know the transformative power of being with those who have the same values that we do. And Chris, it sounds like that's the life you have chosen to adopt.
Yes, 100%.
Chris, thank you very much for your time, partner. And it's a very inspiring part of your life, and we hope that you will continue, and I'm certain you will, have the very positive impact on others based on your past, and you're going to help many other people be inspired to make good decisions. So, Chris, thank you for your resolve.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Ron. I appreciate it.
Chris, I want to say I really love your passion to help others that are going through what you went through, and you're helping them. So really proud of you.
Thank you so much. I'm just, there's a heavy debt to pay, right? Somebody did it for me, and my hope is that, I can maybe try to, see the light come on in somebody else's eyes, and they're going to do it for somebody else in the near future as well. That's kind of the name of the game for me.
That is exactly right. Marty and I, and along with you, Chris, are passing it forward, and we want to add value to people. So you are doing just that. So, Chris, again, thank you for your story, and God bless you, brother, and having the impact that you will continue to have.
Thanks again, guys.
What did you learn from Chris's story? Everyone with a life story has some very individualized circumstances that caused them to get into the situation they were in. However, there may be some common traits, and I'm very interested in learning what you take from some of these situations such that we can help those who may have the traits that could lead them to making decisions that we would not want for them to make. Again, no attempt to label anybody or identify them as having some trait that we don't like, but rather what we do want to do is help people through friendships, relationships, make good decisions. Marty and I have developed a digital course on relationships that helps understand people. There are personalities, there are traits that when we are able to identify those traits, we are able to better relate to others. Acceptance, huge topic. Do you accept me? And if you don't, I'm probably going to learn that or discern it within a few minutes of a conversation. So whether you accept me or not could be a very important aspect of whether I make good decisions or not. So we hope that you will develop good relationships with people. Call us or write us at ron@thecooperculture.com or marty@thecooperculture.com. Let us introduce you to the digital relationship course where we can help others to relate with and accept others, which in the end is going to help make good decisions with people. People largely are based on or have a view of life based on how well we are accepted in our relationship with others. So we look forward to hearing from you. Let us know your thoughts. We want to learn from each other.
Since 2011, American Giant has been making everyday clothing with extraordinary effort. Not in far-off factories, but right here in the USA. We obsess over fabrics, fit, and details, because if you're going to wear it every day, it should feel great and last for years. From the cut of a hoodie to the finishing of a seam, nothing is overlooked. Our supply chain is tight-knit and local, which means less crisscrossing the country and more care in every step. The result is durable clothing, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatpants, and denim that become part of your life season after season. This isn't fast fashion, it's clothing made with purpose by people who care as much about how it's made as how it fits. Get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with code STAPLE20.